pretty big role. Tell us how do you go about informing the university and informing the football program about weather coming in?
Well, the weather is a big deal for football regardless of whether the fans notice it or not, because you have to be prepared for everything. And so even a clear sky, windy conditions from the east, for example, which would be just a fantastic environment for fans, could be an issue if we had a train derailment. If we had hazardous chemicals, over there on the railroad tracks just east of campus. So we're monitoring at all times, not just when the fans think it should be monitored. And that monitoring starts a full week before the game. So the Monday of game week, we are already looking at what the outlooks look like. We'll look at every model available. We do this in conjunction with Weather Decision Technologies here on campus for a game week. So it's not just a single opinion. We consult the National Weather Service office and their folks. So there are a lot of thoughts that are going into the process of what we think the weather timeline looks like on a Saturday game day. Once we
now, how much of a how big of an input do you have in fall sports or any sports there at OU? Do they listen to you more, or do they listen to WDT?
Well, it's essentially all one and the same at that point. It is a collaborative effort, and that collaborative effort is then the generation of a timeline. And once we've put that timeline together, then we start to inform every entity associated with game day. And that's everybody from the police folks that are out on the street and working traffic to ticket takers. Sorry. Oh, man.
I like that, man. I like the tunes that you have there, by the way.
So it's a comprehensive that doesn't just involve the athletic department or football specifically, but it's everybody. So it's an incident command that's set up. So it's OUPD, it's Norman PD, it's fire, it's ticket takers, it's the CSC ushers, it's the band, it's spirit, it's everybody. Anybody who has a tailgate that's going on that's associated with the university. So the Alumni Association, all of those folks are in the loop. And then we have a big, massive meeting on Wednesday, a game day operations meeting, where then I will brief that entire group on what the expectations are for Saturday. If day with heat, we'll have made arrangements for cooling devices and more water and more ice and maybe more medics on site, all of that kind of stuff.
So have you ever, let's say, it's fall time, there's severe weather coming in. How far in advance do you have to inform the university of weather? Let's say there's a football game going on and there's a 2 o'clock kickoff. How long does it take from the very beginning to when they decide to postpone the game?
Yeah, well,
what's that process like?
I'll use the Kansas game in 2014 as exactly that. So by 5 o'clock that morning, and we had already, again, the lead up had occurred, so we were already anticipating lightning. And that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, game day operations meeting, briefings on Thursday, Friday, where we might have to have a complete restructuring of the timeline on game day. And so the goal is to not stop and start. If we can avoid a stop and start at all costs, getting everybody in the stadium, starting the game, lightning is coming. We're no longer in the mode of hoping it doesn't happen. If it looks like there's a good chance, then what we'll do is we will inform athletics, coaching staff. We'll have that briefing with Coach Stoops. We'll have that briefing with the officials. We'll have that briefing with the visiting coaches. And what we will aim to do is shift the entirety of the game day operation from the time the visiting team leaves the hotel through the process. We will shift that entire window, hopefully, back. We can't make it earlier. And really, when we did it for Kansas in November of 2014, due to the threat of lightning that morning, which we did end up getting, I mean, we still had rain during the game, but we didn't have lightning. We pushed the entire window of the game window out of the lightning threat time. And I think everybody was much happier when they saw how that worked. I will give you the one group of people that was absolutely livid, and you know who it is. And that was the TV folks, because that game was televised at a certain time with advertising. And on a game day, it's not just one game on these networks. It's game after game after game after game. So you slide something like that, you're sliding it right into the next window. So the TV folks were the ones that had to scramble the most. But everybody else within the game day operations, within meteorology, within, security, safety, we were all on board, and that's why we moved it.
That leads me up to my next question. Let's say you have a big game. I remember a couple years ago, I went to the OU Texas Tech game, and there were storms that were coming in. It was to be one of the main games on ABC, and as you mentioned, ABC had set their lineup. Do you get a lot of pushback TV when these storms are coming in, and how does that go into your decision making about what to do that evening?
When you mention the OU Tech game, I think you're talking about the reason why we do it the way we do it now, because there have been some games in the past that did not go as safely as I think everybody would have hoped. And this infrastructure that is in place now and has been for the last 2 years, the last 2 seasons, is because of that. And I think what we're seeing, though, is that through our work with the Event Safety Alliance and working nationally with these TV networks, that many of the networks are now understanding better the weather risk to their exposed individuals, the camera crews, the people in the truck. Those are folks that have a lightning issue. They really do. And so as they start to understand that a little bit better through some of our work external, to OU and the game day things, through more of these national organizations, working with, the NCAA, working with production companies like ESPN and such, they're starting to understand, and we're starting to get them back on the same page. But I can tell you, boy, that morning in 2014, talking with the Fox executive on the West Coast at 6 a.m. here and 4 a.m. in California, he was not a happy camper.
I bet. Last question. Let's say that there's a game going on, and there's lightning that comes pretty nearby the stadium. Where do the fans go?
Yeah, we'll work our way backwards. One, we would hope that we would anticipate the risk in such a way that situation. That's the first goal. If we are unable to avoid that situation and we end up with that surprise storm, that we didn't anticipate, and it happens right in the middle of the game, then we are going to begin moving people underneath. If we have enough time to do so, we will be able to move them maybe to some of the surrounding buildings on campus. But in essence, we're looking at using the underneath, and especially the parking garage structure on the west side, as an opportunity to shelter people from the lightning risk.
I sometimes wonder if the NFL is looking at what you and your team down there are doing, because I recall a couple of years ago there was a high-risk day up in Chicago. It was a Sunday, and the Chicago Bears proceeded with the game, and there were tornadoes just west of Chicago. And I remember watching the game, not because I was actually a fan of the team, but it was, how are they going out this stadium when these storms come in? And they waited to the last minute. I mean, and it was kind of terrifying. So do you think that what you are doing down there now is setting an example of how all sporting events should handle their weather operations?
I think so, and it's not just us, but having on-site meteorology throughout the process for anything that pops up is incredibly important, and doing it not in a vacuum. I mean, one person, if it was just myself or if somebody from WDT, but having that collaborative, meteorological expertise, giving us an opportunity to almost set up like a mini fast center, on the fly, can be really helpful. And then we can be communicating to all of the individual players that are required to be on the same page. If this was notifying one person, that would be easy, but it's not. There are so many tentacles to a game day that having the weather expertise and then a communication, every entity is on the same page, is critical. I will add one more thing. They did a pretty good job in their preseason game up in New York. The Giants actually did, sort of a lightning stoppage before that game even started, and they rescheduled the kickoff for after the lightning risk. So we did see the Giants do something very similar to what we did in the Kansas game back in 2014.
Well, good. Is there anything else that you want to add that you think would be important to telling the story?
Yeah, I think that it's an understanding that this is a year-round process. This is not something we dream up on a game day Saturday. The preparation, the meetings, the planning, all a event year-round. I mean, football, the fans notice the 6 or 7 home games a year. But man, it is much more extensive than that. And then the weather piece. A clear sky day with east winds concerns us every bit as greatly as a day with lightning potential. It really does.
I bet. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've had a pretty busy schedule this week to sit down. So I'm gonna put this package together this weekend, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Hopefully it will be done by Monday or Tuesday. It's actually going to air on September 7th. But I'm getting it done early because I'm getting ready to go on vacation while the weather is still kind of quiet. So
cool. Well,
thank you so much.
We can't wait.
What's that?
Ohio State game. Oh my gosh. We're going to have so much.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be nuts.
I know. It is going to be unbelievable. I'm really excited, especially with this new scoreboard. I can see it lighting up the sky from my house. I'm right up the road. So this is there's some good things going on down the road.
I was at a function at the Armory the other night, and as I left the parking lot, I was like, what in the world is going on in Norman? And then it's like, oh yeah. I know what that is.
That thing is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. So, well, Kevin, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. I know you got a lot going on, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Damon. Anytime you need anything, just yell.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate you, man.